Welcome to the Wrestlemania panel. I am Big Kev here with PK Valor. We were supposed to be with four. Um, Apparently Nate is out there at a bachelor party, and
That little bitch, Superstar Xavier Michaels, can't bring himself to see me.
I tried, man. I tried.
Shame, shame, shame. Oh well.
So, we got Remington here in the comment section. Bad guys are awesome. So sad that he's lost. So, yeah, I got this toothpick right here, and you have to do the whole, flinging at the screen right there because that's what I just did. Gotta make sure I don't step on it now. But what does Scott Hall mean to you, man? Like, what? I mean, we're gonna talk about a little bit about WrestleMania, obviously, but what does Scott Hall mean to you?
Scott was he was one of the power guys that actually kind of got me hooked into the business. I always dug the Razor Ramon gimmick. I always thought it was something different. Honestly, I never really cared for the movie Scarface, but the Razor Ramon gimmick I liked. So it's kind of odd for that one since he kind of based it so much off that. The arrogance, the toothpick, obviously. I absolutely love that the business kept his finish protected too.
Yeah.
One of the very few that nobody ever kicked out of. To me, being an old school lover of wrestling, that's something that it means a lot to me.
When I first saw Scott Hall, Scott Hall's important because my older brother doesn't even watch wrestling anymore. But when Scott Hall passed away, he was enough to call me and go, you remember when we used to watch those NWO things where they were going after the Steiner brothers and they said they found Luger's house on the left? I was like, oh my God. It was like memories like that for my own brother to call me and be like,
yeah.
He's like, what's up, Chico? I mean,
yeah, my dad, my old man, ended up calling me the night that it happened, and he goes like, "Oh my God, did you hear about Scott? Did you hear about Razor?" I'm like, "Yeah, I heard about it. There's kind of been the talk around the building, the shop, and ironically, I'm like one of like 3 or 4 guys that like wrestling there, and everyone's just like, "Oh man, we're sorry that you essentially lost a comrade, a colleague, even though you probably never wrestled with him, and I haven't. I never have.
Yeah.
I've never even been graced in being in the same building as him, but it does. It feels like a party is kind of missing from it as a wrestler."
I think what's missing for me with this now is whenever a wrestler dies, and you know this from being in the wrestling business, and I know this, it's almost like you're missing a brother.
Yep.
They go away, and you're like, well, shit,
Oh yeah.
Our brother's gone, and that's what's going on with it.
That's exactly how it feels.
And the brotherhood's gone, and you don't think about it, and I
And
feel bad.
It doesn't even have to be a wrestler. It can be a referee too, because we've had a couple of them earlier this year. I think a couple of referees passed away.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of them was just last month. I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, but
I was drawing a blank on that too. I know who you're talking about
because it happened on Valentine's Day.
What a bad way to go.
Oh fuck yeah.
So, I mean, to be honest with you, though, there is nobody. This is one thing about Scott Hall, and I tell anybody this: you want to see a guy who is, he was a big guy. He was, 6'5", 6'6", 260, 70 pounds, but his technical wrestling, his IQ, his wrestling IQ.
Oh
he was the first guy to actually say when Finn Balor came in to WWE, he said Finn Balor was going to be a star.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was a star. Finn, not to get off topic of Scott, but Finn was a star even over in Japan, though, as Prince Devitt. So, I mean, he may not have been known super duper wide around the States, but he's been around the block for a while.
And I mean, he basically, I like how he made the comment saying he was going to eat Paige out if he ever saw Paige.
I remember that.
You remember that comment? But the one thing with Scott, though, is he was always very good at IQ. Apparently, he helped out behind the scenes in NXT before Vince took it over at 2.0. He actually used to tell Triple H and Shawn, hey, you should book this guy. This guy is going to be good. This guy is going to be good. And
until Hunter had his problems. Then once that happened, they kind of ushered him out.
Right. But Scott to me is a guy who, he's won the tag titles, he's won the United States title, he's won the TV title, he's won the Intercontinental title, but that man should have been at least a world champion once.
I could have sworn, didn't he? I could have sworn at one time he did for a very short period of time when he won World War III in WCW, or did it just give him a title shot?
Yeah, he won a title shot, but I don't know.
Okay, that's what it was. I couldn't remember if he won the belt itself or if he just won a title shot.
It was a title shot because I remember Hogan came in there and they both were trying to help each other out, and it was so it was like a title shot, but he finally did get it though. So that's pretty much what that is. But now we're going to go into WrestleMania. I know that you were watching WrestleMania clips. I watched quite a bit last night. I actually stayed up until about 5 in the morning and finally finished a few. And Mel was like, "Are you ever going to come to bed?" I'm like, "I will.
Eventually.
Eventually, I'll come to bed." But no, we actually talked about it. The very first ever WrestleMania, Madison Square Garden. From what the story I hear is that the McMahons put in everything that they had, every money. They went bankrupt doing that. Yep. It was either do or die.
It was going to be boom or bust. If he didn't make it, they were out of business.
Right. So for WrestleMania 1, what matches come to mind for you? Like what kind of moments from WrestleMania 1 come to you?
I mean, you've got the ones that everybody knows about. You've got Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. Good God, I wish my memory wasn't so shit because I just watched this the other day too, or most of it. I didn't. But I know that I liked watching Andre versus John Studd, and to learn about the history that the two of those guys had behind the scenes. And how John Studd always wanted to go over the top rope, too, to get in the ring because he was legitimately 6'10". Mm-hmm. So he was a big guy, and he didn't want to go through the ropes because that was Andre's thing, stepping over the top. Ricky Steamboat had a good match on there, too, I think, in my opinion.
That was the era of the whole rock and wrestling. That's when he had Cyndi Lauper come out with Wendy Richter.
Yep. I know the one thing that scared the ever-living hell out of me, though, was to watch guys get up on the ropes and just watch the ropes sag as far as they did. Like, it looked – to me, it was scary. It's as somebody who's done stuff, come off the middle turnbuckle or the top rope, been thrown off of them, to see a guy that weighs even 30, 40 pounds more than I do at 250, 260, that their weight, not mine. Mine's 210-ish. But to see guys that are standing on that and watch the top rope turn into the middle rope at that turnbuckle, it's like, holy shit, how are they not falling? How are they not getting hurt from this?
Mm-hmm. The one thing is, too, I hated the ropes look very loose.
They did. In WrestleMania 1, if you go from WrestleMania 1 to WrestleMania 2, it's almost like night and day for the ropes.
Now, the one thing about WrestleMania 1, too, I also liked was they went star-studded with it. And I know that when I was talking to Superstar off air the other day, I remember one time we were talking about one of the panels, he said he hated the fact that the WrestleMania uses star-studded stuff. But WrestleMania has been using star-studded celebrities since the first.
Oh, yeah. The very first one you had, I want to say Muhammad Ali was at WrestleMania 1 as a part of it. Cyndi Lauper was there. Mr. T. And then you turn around in WrestleMania 2, you've got Mr. T versus Roddy Piper in a boxing match. Yeah. I can see in the comments, Prodigal Heel, we're talking about Scott Hall. Razor Ramon should have won at least one world title, either in WCW or WWE.
Yeah, we're talking about Razor Ramon. Scott Hall at least should have had at least a title run.
It would have been nice. Now, he's also one of those guys that he didn't need that belt to be over, too, which is good. But it would have it would have just given him a little bit more oomph to that legacy that he has as an individual.
Not to change past from WrestleMania 1, but since they're in Dallas, Texas for WrestleMania 38, don't you think the WWE should sign some of the young Von Erichs out there? Because, I mean, you think about it. It's Dallas, Texas. Yeah, you got Undertaker going to Hall of Fame. Yeah, you got Stone Cold coming and doing a confrontation with Kevin Owens. But wouldn't it be nice to have some Von Erichs there?
Maybe bring them in like an invitational style setting, something like that on like the undercard.
Mm-hmm.
But just with the Von Erich curse, I don't know. I don't know if you'd want to, because you don't essentially want to, like, this is going to sound really bad taste. You don't want to pull a trigger on something where it's already kind of the history with the family is a volatile one.
Now, we're talking about WrestleMania 2. I think when it was syndicated back then, apparently my parents told me that wrestling back then in the pay-per-views, because I was too young to really still understand it. I loved it, but I was too young to understand it. They were always explaining to my dad's like, "Hey, you could actually go to the theater and see it."
Yep.
And that was.
I just got an email. Speaking of the devil on that one, I saw an email come into my email today. Do you want to rent a theater for WrestleMania? So they're giving theaters, at least in my area, I guess, an opportunity to do that.
That is actually awesome, actually.
I mean, this was a legitimate WWE email talking about WWE's WrestleMania coming to theaters. Now, I don't know if I'd do it because it's a 2-day fiasco now. If it was still just a one-night deal where it was 3, maybe 4 hours, but now you've got 2 shows that are 4 or 5 hours long. I love wrestling. I love the idea of WrestleMania. I love the pageantry that goes with it. It is literally the grandest stage of them all for wrestling.
Right.
But I could not do it for 10 hours. I don't know how people can go for the WrestleMania weekend and sit there and not go completely insane if they're only wanting to see 1 or 2 matches.
You would actually like the Prodigal Hill because me and him are the ones that trolled AEW fans, and he would always go, AEW wrestling.
Oh, it does sound like him and I would get along very well.
We troll AEW fans all the time.
We just got to come to an agreement. We got to leave MJF alone. He's the only good thing about AEW.
Oh well, Prodigal Hill posting, he likes MJF as well. So it's kind of like
MJF reminds me of that old school style heel.
He reminds me of that young Ric Flair that you would see with the Horsemen back then with the suit and everything. It just
except I hate that ugly looking scarf though. Like it works for the character, but I hate it so much.
The scarf is kind of hideous looking.
Like it looks like something that you'd see like a 40-year-old gym teacher wearing or something on a cold day. Or not gym teacher, like an English teacher or math teacher. Gym teacher would just be wearing a letter, like a varsity jacket. It's just like, oh, good God.
Oh, geez. But, one thing about wrestling.
I do see in the comments, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Lacey versus Charlotte would actually probably be something good to see. I could get behind that one, heel.
Yeah. I mean, Lacey Von Erich was not bad to look at in TNA. I mean, we can throw that out there. She was part of the beautiful people.
That's true.
I mean, I have a friend who met Velvet Sky, and he had a crush on Velvet Sky, but he didn't want to say anything because at the time she was dating Bully Ray, and Bully Ray was sitting right there. So he didn't want to get his whooped.
Gotta kind of watch yourself there then.
But WrestleMania 2, the one thing I loved about it, I know that Superstar said he hated WrestleMania 2, but I liked the whole thing that it was done in 3 different cities. It was done in Chicago, LA, and New York. And
yeah,
I like the fact that there was a main event in each spot. Like you had that big battle royal, and you had some of the NFL players like William the Fridge.
You had Fridge.
Yeah, Fridge. And
he eliminated, who was it? Who was it he pulled over the top rope?
I forgot, but we actually saw the Hart Foundation for the first time.
Yep, Hart Foundation was in there. I think they were in WrestleMania 1 also. I know at least WrestleMania 2 they were.
WrestleMania 2 they were. And one thing with WrestleMania 2 though, the whole story about Hogan and King Kong Bundy, going into Saturday night's main event, Hogan got his ribs broken or busted, so they were showing him working out with his ribs taped up and facing King Kong Bundy. And Bundy, I've met Bundy. Bundy has told me a story before that he thanks Hogan for a lot of stuff because he said if it wasn't for me having that feud with Hogan, I wouldn't be anywhere. And he got a lot of money, a lot of payday for WrestleMania 2.
Oh, yeah.
That's when they started wearing the merch. That's when the merch started coming out. Then they had the Hogan Rocket Wrestling cartoon, and
you'd start seeing kids with the Hulkster shirts and everything, Hulkamania shirts.
Man, I was 8 years old and I bought that Hogan powder stuff, the whole protein stuff, and I was so disappointed because I got these plastic weights. Like they were weights, but they weren't like steel. And I was so upset because I was taking it. I was like, why am I not getting bigger like Hogan? And that's when I was starting to get kind of pissed. And then when I found out about the whole, steroid scandal, I was like, okay. Okay. So
you find out that he's not the clean cut dude that he actually was leading us on to be.
But WrestleMania 3, Pontiac Silverdome. Right before that, they had the Pope there, and the Pope had like 80,000 people, and I think the Rolling Stone had like 70 or 80,000 people.
Yep.
But
I mean, we know today that they inflated that number because it was not anywhere near 93,000. They said now.
Yeah.
Going back to look at it, but yeah, I mean, you had arguably one of the best Intercontinental title matches in history. There, you had Savage versus Steamboat.
Ooh, yeah.
That was an absolute gorgeous match. Obviously, the big draw because you see it all the time on everything is Hogan Andre, but
the one match I actually loved on there. A lot of people don't realize that they had Alice Cooper come out with Jake the Snake. Jake the Snake was facing the Honky Tonk Man.
Yep, I remember that.
You get to see that, and you had Hillbilly Jim and some midget wrestling with King Kong Bundy and some midgets. And I remember Bundy doing that splash on one of the midgets, and it was just
he was gonna splash the midget, and the other three midgets grabbed him, and Hillbilly Jim just stood in between them and just kind of like, "Don't you dare!"
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I missed on that part because I was like,
was it in 3 or was it in 5 that Dynamite Kid, or was it even maybe in 2 where Dynamite Kid, the British Bulldogs, had Ozzy come to the ring with them too?
I think so. It was.
I want to say that was in 3.
Let me make sure on that because I know it's going to be one of the two.
Yeah, because I mean that was one of those things. It's like, damn, as an Ozzy fan, how did I forget that? And then obviously to see a young 1980s Ozzy, you just kind of look at it and go, oh, dear God, he did not age well.
I think it was, from what it's saying, it sounded like it was 1986.
That would have,
that should be, I think. 2.
Also, it was 2. Okay.
It was 2, yeah.
I knew I was going to say, I couldn't remember if it was 2 or 3, but and I do remember the British Bulldogs walking out with the tag team titles, I believe, that year, too. Mm-hmm. So that was actually really good. Really underrated team.
Man.
Shit. I did not know that. Like, are we actually talking, like, Star Wars, or there was an actual WCCW pay-per-view called Star Wars?
Let me see.
Because if that's the case, I might have to go look that up just to check it out.
Actually, from what I'm reading here, they actually had it was actually a supercard show called WCCW Star Wars.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I will have to look that up. Thank you for saying something about that, man. That sounds like a badass event.
But yeah, when WrestleMania 3 happened, obviously we all, as wrestling fans who watch wrestling, we already knew that Hogan fought Andre before.
Yep.
Because
then there was that short period of time where he was annexed from WWE's his. Like nobody talked about Hogan, so the jokes and memes that were going around were, hey, does everybody remember that time at WrestleMania 3 where Andre the Giant tripped over himself and lost? Because you couldn't even mention Hogan's name in WCW or WWE without causing problem after problem.
Well, Hogan had this thing where it was Star Wars was the Star Wars show he's talking about started in 1982, the year I was born. So we're talking
Nice.
40 years. 40 years. So that thing did start before WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. It was a couple years before it, I believe.
Yeah, WrestleMania started in 85, so this one started in 82. So, but we all knew that Hogan and Andre, I like the concept that they did with it because they're like, look, Hogan was a bad guy. Andre didn't like him at first, and then there was a thing happened in Japan. Hogan and Andre became best friends.
Oh yeah.
And then Hogan had the title run for a couple years there, and they're like, well, why is he not defending the title? And then Bobby Heenan, the late great Bobby Heenan. People can say what they want about the Brain. You can say what you want.
Best fucking manager ever in wrestling to me was Bobby Heenan.
You don't like Slick and the Giant Soul, bro?
Nothing about Slick. Reverend Slick was nice too.
But the thing about that match though is the way Hogan explained it. There's this thing on HBO and it's on the Peacock now. If anybody get a chance to watch the Andre the Giant thing that came out like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, because it started out on ESPN.
Yeah, Hogan wrote the entire match. What we saw, Hogan wrote down on a pad. And he was scared to death because he kept asking Andre, so what do you think about the match? Andre's like, don't worry. And Vince is like, Hogan was petrified because Hogan didn't know if Andre was going to let him win or if he was going to take the belt. Because back in the day, if Andre wanted that belt, there ain't no stopping Andre from getting it.
That's why Savage hated working with Andre because the two of them didn't get along backstage no matter what Savage would do. Andre just didn't like him.
You remember when Hogan was talking about how Savage had the baby oil? He's like, no baby oil, get out. This is for you, Liz.
Yep.
Slapping him right in the chest and stuff like that. I mean, can you imagine getting chopped by Andre? How big that hand is in that chest right there. I'm like, man.
Oh, I think my chest would be gone.
I mean, it would be an honor. I mean, back then I would have thought like, okay, this would have been an honor to get in the ring with Andre. But I knew I was going to get my ass kicked. I would already been prepared for it. I'm like, can you imagine Andre and Brock Lesnar? I can tell you right now,
it'd be an interesting match, but I don't know if
Andre would not let him do those suplexes.
I was gonna say I don't think Andre would stop him. He'd try to pick him up and he'd just dead weight 550 pounds and say, yeah, I guess if you can really get me off my feet, then you can do it. But until then, it ain't happening.
Yeah, Andre hated the baby oil of wrestling. That's what he hated. He hated that baby oil. So when Macho Man would always dip himself in that baby oil, and it was like, man, there's some times where Hogan thought, man, this guy's going to kill him. He's going to kill Macho Man if we don't stop.
Yeah, and it's scary because there would have been no stopping Andre. That is.
And that's the but the WrestleMania 3 thing, Hogan said he wrote it down and he was surprised because Andre did everything that was written down on that notepad. So, and we all know that, and at that time, Andre was bigger than what he was. He was he had that. He never got that surgery. He never got that surgery to correct the giantism.
Yeah,
and his back was bad. That's when he was filming Princess Bride.
Yep, he was. This was when he was just starting to slowly get ready to go downhill before he just rapidly went down.
And so Andre's health went down. So then we go into WrestleMania 4, and we all know the Superstar's favorite thing was Saturday night's main event with the Hefner switches.
Yep.
And Hogan
that made a great story to lead into it for that tournament. I personally do not like WrestleMania 4. Like, I liked the idea of the tournament and everything, but it just I cannot get into that one for some reason. So nothing against the men that competed in it, because I have a lot of respect for DiBiase, Savage, Hogan. Some respect for Hogan, Andre.
The one thing I hated about it, it was a good. Now, what I did like about it, it developed a good story going into WrestleMania 5 with Hogan and Macho Man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they built that story over the course of that year as the Mega Powers. And that was to me, that was a really good match for WrestleMania 5 for a main event.
One of the reasons why Macho Man was champion there for a while, because Hogan was filming No Holds Barred.
Yep.
So that was another reason why. That's not a reason why Macho Man got a shot. But when Macho Man did, though, that match between him and DiBiase was great. They really didn't need Hogan and Andre in there.
No, they didn't.
And it took away from the match, I thought.
I think so, too. I mean, at the same time, no, Hogan came out for the finish, but you didn't necessarily need Hogan in there for the finish. To me, that was just Hogan politicking his way into the main event, since that him and Andre get eliminated right off the bat.
Well, actually, it kind of started a couple months before when Macho Man was facing Honky Tonk Man on Saturday Night's Main Event and the Hart Foundation, and Macho Man were getting hit with that with that guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And Liz went to go pull Hogan out. She did the same thing in here.
Yep.
Here comes Hogan going. They had the big old eyes, and they're like, "Oh, come down here!"
The 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, the 1,000-yard stare. I'm like,
the only other people that can fucking perfect that are Marines.
I actually showed Mel that clip, and Mel's like, "Why is he staring like from far distance?" And I've actually been inside the Trump Plaza. She's from New Jersey. I got a chance to go inside the Trump Plaza. And it's actually a pretty good sized hotel. When you look at the building, it wasn't that big, but when you go inside of it,
it's a lot bigger inside.
A lot bigger inside. That's how Madison Square Garden is. On the outside, you're like,
MSG I knew about. I've never been in there, but I've seen tons of video and pics of people inside it. So
we got the big old Hogan stare, WrestleMania 4. They had the tournament for the title. Macho Man won it.
Yep.
So then the next coming months, they had that SummerSlam with the Mega Powers versus and Jesse Ventura was the referee, and Elizabeth took her skirt off and distracted. I was like, wait a minute, whoa, that's first sexual shit there. I was like,
I love that he just says A&W. God damn it! Now I want A&W because I live near Janesville. I live like a half hour away from Janesville, Wisconsin, which is like the only area I know that has an A&W still next to Chicago.
Oh, by the way, look what the Procol Hill said. They don't build up stories and matches anymore. That's why AEW wrestling will never be on that level. Everyone thinks they are always main events on there.
And unfortunately, that's a lot of that falls on Tony Khan. He lets them. He wants to be everybody's buddy first and their boss second. So Tony Khan looks like
that guy at a convention that would buy all the dolls and make the dolls come to life and be like, "They're my creation." Hi. That's kind of how he comes off, and
I agree.
And I don't really think he's going to do Ring of Honor any justice. I mean, some people think he will, but I'm like,
I think all he needs to do is he just needs to keep the name of it and let somebody else run it altogether.
Why not hire Jim Cornette? I'm just running out there.
Cornette doesn't want anything to do with wrestling anymore, and he doesn't really care for Tony Khan. So I know Cornette isn't going to want to do a shit with it. He's already dealt with Ring of Honor once.
You know what's funny is like when I met Cornette at the convention one day, he was just like, I asked him, I was like, "Is there anybody you do like?" Because I asked, I wanted to know. I was like, "Is there anybody you like?" And he's like, "Not really." He's like, he respects the hell out of Steve Austin and Bret Hart, but an Undertaker, but he won't like. But we get into that WrestleMania, and then we started.
He actually, since we're talking about Cornette really quick, he did go on and say the other day as they were talking before he actually passed away.
Yeah.
He said that Scott Hall is the only one of that clique that he actually really had any respect for because he was the only one who didn't do a whole lot of the politicking, and he was the only one who really seemed to care about the business, not just in it for himself. So,
You know, one thing I like about Scott Hall is I remember watching his old things with Kurt Hennig back in the day. He had that porn mustache.
oh my God.
Before he became the Diamond Stud with Diamond Dallas Page, he had the big old mustache. And I'll tell you what, though, Cornette and Prodigal Hill they had a feud going on Twitter a while back. Cornette does not like him.
I kind of gathered that by the laughing faces, that was meant to be sarcasm.
Yeah, he does not like him. They had a little bit battle, but we're getting into the Hogan Macho Man thing.
Cornette probably likes Prodigal Heel as much as Jericho likes me on Twitter.
Oh, Jericho don't like you.
He's got me. When I had a Twitter, he had me blocked because I would run down AEW. And I told him he looked like he needed to stay retired and he needed to lose about 50 pounds.
He must have listened to you because he did. He dropped some weight.
Yeah, he dropped all that fucking weight finally.
Well, you know what's funny is I met Jericho when he first had his book signing, the first ever book he did. And Jericho was nice, but at the same time, Jericho didn't have his arm around me, but he certainly was a little close to Mel that day. Little fucker. I have the picture to prove it. I was like, man, this sucks. But, you know, with the Hogan Macho Man thing at WrestleMania 5, that is actually one of my favorite matches.
It was a really good one. I think that WrestleMania is one that Superstar said he didn't care for. So,
but here's the thing with that WrestleMania 5, though. The one thing I loved about it was also I like the Warrior and Rick Rude match too with the Intercontinental title.
I did like that too. I didn't care much for the ending. I wish it would have. The ending made sense, unfortunately.
Bobby Heenan holding on to the leg, yeah.
Mm-hmm. While Rick just kind of laid there and gave him the pin, but
that's another guy that MJF reminds me of, Rick Rude too on the mic.
Yeah, he does kind of give me a little bit of a Rick Rude vibe.
You know, he's like the guy that would be like, "Your girlfriend's looking at me. Sit down, fat boy." You know, just kind of like. But with the Hogan Macho Man thing, the one thing I loved about it was they had the Survivor Series, and then at the Rumble, when they had their very first ever Rumble, Hogan accidentally eliminated Macho Man, or so we thought. He accidentally eliminated Macho Man, and the reason why it made this match even better is when you watch the Macho Man DVD, you find out the Macho Man did not want Elizabeth around anybody.
Yeah,
and that's what made it even like.
He was really possessive and protective of who she spent time around.
But that little stuff on Saturday Night's Main Event where he's like, please try to talk some sense to him and Macho Man's on top of him. You can actually hear Macho Man with those fists. Is like, he's delivering some.
Yeah, I don't think that was a work. I think he was legitimate trying to
beat the shit out of Hogan.
Trying to fuck up Hogan's day.
But, when we talk about that, though, the match was great. But I think Macho Man also was in the hospital a couple of days before that because he had a staph infection.
Yes, he did. That's right.
That's the reason why his it looked like his thing was down. You're like, well, he's got an elbow. What happened to him? I'm like, staph infection.
Yeah, gotta have that. He had that elbow all wrapped up. And it worked out good because between that and the tape on his wrists, he used that for heel tactics and stuff like that, like choking Hogan. So
I remember they had Mr. Perfect versus the Blue Blazer. We all know who the Blue Blazer was.
Well, I think at that time it wasn't.
You don't know if it was Owen Hart or not. Yeah,
I think at that time it was not Owen because Owen would have been, I want to say he was about 6 or 7 years younger than Bret. And Bret was in his late 20s in that point in WWE.
They had another match they had was Jake Roberts versus Andre, and Andre had a real fear of snakes.
Yep. Yeah, because Big John Studd was the referee for that, the special referee for that. And Andre ends up attacking him from behind as every time Jake tries to go get Damien.
And what's cool too is this match had a lot of this WrestleMania card had a lot of tag matches. We had Demolition, Axe and Smash versus the Powers of Pain with World War the Barbarian with Mr. Fuji.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I want to say Survivor Series or something leading up to that, or even maybe it was the year. Yeah, it was leading up to that. Mr. Fuji used to be he was the manager for Demolition.
Yeah.
And then basically turned his back on them and joined the Powers of Pain. So, and then they ended up having, I want to say the following year at WrestleMania, they ended up having a 2-on-3 match, and Demolition pinned Mr. Fuji after doing their backbreaker elbow drop thing.
Man, I'm looking at the card. They had the Twin Towers, Akeem and Big Boss Man. They beat with Slick. They beat the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, which the Rockers got fired once or twice before they finally got.
Yeah,
they had the Bushwhackers versus the Fabulous Rougeaus.
Yep, I remember that one.
We had the Brain Busters, Arn Anderson,
Arn and Tully.
Yes. Jason Strikeforce with Santana and Rick Martel, and I think that's when Martel.
That's when Martel and Santana broke up, and that started his heel turn in that model gimmick. Coming out with arrogance.
We had the Hart Foundation versus Greg the Hammer Valentine and Honky Tonk Man.
Yep.
So we had a lot of tag matches back then. Like, I mean, WrestleMania used to really care. Wrestling used to care about tag team wrestling back then. And I think that's also missing in wrestling now is the tag team wrestling stuff. And I really do hope the FTR has Bret Hart as their manager, because I think that this would definitely help them more than Tony Blanchard.
That was great. I know he used to do stuff like that in hotels and people would get freaked out.
Well, we go into WrestleMania 6, Toronto Skydome.
Yep, where you had Hogan and Warrior.
Title for title. Now, I will say this about this match. I'll say this. As a kid, I cried because that's the first time I ever saw Hogan lose 1, 2, 3. Clean.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was hoping, and Hogan said that there was a point where he wanted to turn heel during this time. And his idea was, what if he went back in the ring and hit the Warrior in the head with that belt and turn heel? He wanted to be Hollywood then. But they wouldn't let him do that. Kind of like how WWE wouldn't let John Cena turn heel. It was kind of like, can't do it.
The guy was too big. He was too much of a fan favorite at that time. It wouldn't have worked in the 1980s for him to turn heel out of the blue like that.
This is the first 1990. It was 1990 WrestleMania 6. And one thing about this one is Hogan didn't get a lot of credit for this match, and I'll give him credit for this. If you've never seen some of his Japan matches, Hogan can actually.
Oh, he can wrestle. I know that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He actually showed it in this match with Warrior. He had to calm that man down. And you had to slow him down. And like Hogan was saying, that like halfway through the match, Warrior was gassed. He was like, dude, stay with me. Stay with me. And
yeah, because it was like a 40-minute match? 20? Oh, apparently only a 25-minute match.
25-minute match, yeah. But it looked like it was longer, though. Like, if you go back and watch it, you're thinking, wow, that's more than 25 minutes. But
yeah, and then that's – apparently there were 15 matches on the card, too. Some of these I don't even remember seeing, but –
I remember seeing Axis Smash versus the Colossal Connection with Andre and Haku.
Yeah,
that was like the last Andre.
That's because that's when fucking Bobby Heenan decides to get a wild hair up his ass and he slaps Andre, and Andre just paintbrushes him.
Superstar's favorite Earthquake defeated Hercules in this one.
Earthquake was a highly underrated individual too for a heel.
Yeah, he was.
For his size, that man was very, very athletic. And one of the few that I think legitimately, if he really wanted to, he could have probably put Andre even in his place. Because the man was a legitimate sumo wrestler in Japan, too. So, I don't know if he was necessarily that 468 pounds they always build him at WrestleMania, but
they teased that in 91 because where Andre was thinking about coming out of retirement, and then I remember he told Jimmy Hart no, and I remember Earthquake splashed on his leg, and stuff like that. So they were teasing.
It would have been a good match to see. I wish that could have happened, but
we had the Dusty Rhodes and Sapphire with Miss Elizabeth versus Macho King and Queen Sherry.
Yep.
I didn't think Dusty Rhodes didn't get a lot of respect in WWE.
In WWE, Dusty did not. They
made him come out with that whole polka dot shit, and I'm just kind of like, come on, he's the American Dream.
See, the gear didn't bother me. It was just how they treated him as the gimmick. It just to know the fights and the wars that he had with Flair down in the South and everything.
I remember watching a NWA show once where Hawk and Animal were bad guys, and I remember watching Hawk take one of the Animal or Hawk takes one of the spikes out and hits Dusty in the eye.
Yep. Was that NWA or AWA? Because I know Hawk and Animal did a lot with AWA.
I think it was NWA. I'm not sure. I have to go back and watch it, but I remember watching the television with them, and I remember they took off the spike on the shoulder
pads, and they stabbed at Dusty's eyes. Yep, I remember that.
For you wrestling fans that don't remember that, it's actually out there. Then they had the Oriental Express versus the Rockers. Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Dino Bravo.
That's one of the first times that I ever actually saw Hacksaw too, because I never saw like the first Royal Rumble and everything that he actually won. So it was different.
Rick Rude beated Jimmy Snuka. You had Ted DiBiase defeated Jake Roberts by a countout.
Yep. For that $1 million title.
Jake Roberts was also a guy who was really smart in his business and doesn't get
part of that's because of his dad too. I won't sit here and say the late great Grizzly Smith, because that guy was not.
No.
He protected the guys in the business, but he was not a good man. He definitely had something that wasn't right upstairs.
So what was your initial thought when you first saw the Hogan Warrior match?
I will be honest, when I first saw the Hogan Warrior match, obviously it was 1990. So I was only about 4 years old, almost 4 years old at this time. So it didn't click the best then. So obviously I got to go back and watch it as I was growing up, and they came out with the cassettes. And watching the tape back of it, it was one of those yeah, let's go Hogan. But at the same time, it was like, Warrior's kind of cool too, because he's all the flashy colors, and I was always digging that, just like with Macho.
I gotta do it for the Warrior. Hulk Hogan.
Guy couldn't do a promo to save his life. The guy couldn't wrestle a match to save his life either, for that matter. But looking back on it now as an adult and in the business, that match is all about just gimmick. It's WWF Hogan did not do Hogan's name any justice for how his ability to wrestle was. And getting put into a program with the Ultimate Warrior was a waste of him.
See, the thing was, I know Hogan told Vince that he didn't think Warrior was ready. He was right on that. I'll give Hogan credit. But the one thing I did not like about it when I got older,
I don't think you could have given Warrior another 5 years. He would have been ready. Warrior had way too much hype on himself. He thought he was the greatest fucking thing on the planet.
Yep.
And he didn't want to take the time to actually learn the business. He wanted to make the money. And it was evidenced by that after he won the belt.
Yeah.
As soon as he did that, he went into Vince's office and demanded a Hogan-style contract.
Which we'll get into that one too, because it kind of ties into WrestleMania 7. But after WrestleMania 7, it ties into WrestleMania 8. But the one thing I as a kid I was devastated, but then when I got older, I went back and I watched it, and I realized that Hogan kicked out right after the referee counted 3.
Yep.
And it was almost like a shithead move to do. It was like A real shit.
I mean, it worked at the same time because it made it look like, oh shit, Hogan, did the referee screw Hogan?
Yeah.
Or did Hogan just he just couldn't get it, he just couldn't get it in time. And he thought he had a little bit more left and he didn't. So I mean that could have worked on even selling a rematch for WrestleMania 7 and building to that.
That's what Hogan said they were building towards. They were building towards a rematch at WrestleMania 7. That's what the idea was. That was what he was told when he dropped the belt to the Warrior. They said, hey, WrestleMania 7, Los Angeles Coliseum is going to be you and the Warrior. And he's like, okay, well, let's do this. But also, Hogan also dropped the belt too because at that time he was filming what, Mr. Nanny or Suburban Commando?
I think 1990, I think it was Days of Thunder, actually.
Yeah, he was doing something at that time.
I think Suburban Commando was like 93, maybe 94, shortly before he went to WCW.
I know Thunder in Paradise he was filming before.
Or maybe that's what it was, not Days of Thunder. Thunder in Paradise.
But he was kind of in the mix of trying to get away from the wrestling world at that point.
Yeah, he was doing a few different things with Hollywood. Now,
before we get to WrestleMania 7, they had the whole Iraq War was happening. So they turned Sergeant Slaughter, the guy who we heard in G.I. Joe and everything else, they turned him into an Iraqian. And he was burning the American.
What?
Iraqian? I don't know what the fuck it was called.
Just no AN. Just he became an Iraqi supporter.
Iraqi supporter, whatever. I just like to make fun of it. Go Iraqian. I like to make fun of it. So,
if you would have been Iranian, you'd have been perfect. You'd have been spot on, buddy.
I know. I was like, you know what? I used to make fun of it back then like that. So I was like, why not just do it? I was going to do it for the show. I mean, But yeah, he was an Iraq supporter.
Yep.
They had General Agnog, and they actually brought back fucking Iron Sheik as a supporter.
That was General. That was General Adnan, I believe it was. Colonel Mustafa. Colonel Mustafa was Iron Sheik with a different name.
Now,
thank you, Prodigal Heel. I guess I was wrong. It was Suburban Commando.
Now, if you really want to talk about before Hogan got into this title match with Slaughter, at the Royal Rumble, Sergeant Slaughter beat the Ultimate Warrior. They did the really good story mode between the Macho King and the Warrior. Macho Man's like, if I can't beat you, I retire. And that match was probably one of the best Warrior matches. I thought WrestleMania 6 was good with him and Hogan, but the one with him and Macho Man at WrestleMania 7.
And that was because of Savage. That wasn't because of Warrior. That was because Savage knew how to make it work.
And that's what he was, he was pretty much like, and then all of a sudden Sherry turned on him. Elizabeth gets out of the Sting. They reunite.
They reunite and right off into the sunset kind of thing.
But WrestleMania 7 also starts the undefeated streak of The Undertaker.
Yep.
With Jimmy Snuka.
Yep, he beats Jimmy Snuka for his first WWE victory at Mania.
Now, it was supposed to be at the LA Coliseum, but because Sergeant Slaughter was getting death threats, around that time, that's when they had to move it into the LA Sports Arena because there was more security there. And I felt bad for Slaughter because Slaughter actually made a pretty good heel at that point.
Before we even get to that one, I completely forgot about it. We had the blindfold match, which was something that I absolutely loved because as a Jake fan, and I even liked Rick Martel. I thought the model Rick Martel was a really good fucking heel.
A little bit of MJF too.
Mm-hmm. He had that big what is it, an atomizer or whatever, the comically huge thing for his for his. Like, I mean, when I was watching some last night, I mean, I swear to God, this thing had to have been a solid 4 or 5 feet. It's maybe 3-4 feet long.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, good God.
So we have also in that match, also in that card, we have the Rockers facing Haku and the Barbarian.
I just got a message. It says they couldn't sell the reason why they switched was they couldn't sell out the other stadium. Only 1,500 tickets had gotten sold.
Well, I also heard too that they also had death threats as well, and that was another.
I do remember, yes. Slaughter was getting a lot of death threats because everybody was big on the patriotism with it being Desert Storm. I think it was Desert Storm. But yeah, I mean, when you go from having a G.I. Joe modeled after you as a wrestler to adopting literally the enemy's gimmick,
and think about those.
You're painting yourself into a corner of he'll be lucky if you don't get shot coming out of an arena.
And think about those feuds that he used to have with Iron Sheik and him and
exactly.
Slaughter. And they were
and then to all of a sudden you've got, even with a different name, he still had that same recognizable face. That is the one thing that I never understood about, and even to this day.
Yeah.
When people do the gimmick changes and the name changes, if you've known somebody as something else for so long, I know that places own the rights to the names and everything, or like obviously Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, and WWE owns the rights to the name Dean Ambrose and shit. But it's just when you see somebody going as something like the Iron Sheik, and they use that through every territory he was in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he comes back and he still looks the same, and now he's known as Colonel Mustafa. Like, no, people aren't. Unfortunately, that's part of Vince McMahon's going to be tragic downfall. Is he doesn't give his viewers and his fan base for his business or his part of the business enough credit, and he assumes that they're low attention spans, or which is why a lot of their matches now don't do this like 20, 30 minute. It's like 6, 7, 8 minute long matches and then done out the door. And it's all flippy floppy bullshit. Not as much flippy floppy bullshit as the Young Bucks, but that's besides the point.
The Chronicle Hill might actually like this one because this one also had Kerry Von Erich as the Texas Tornado.
Yep.
In this card. And he
beats Dino Bravo.
Who
was another guy, another heel that was highly underrated for his, and he was a legitimate powerhouse too.
I used to get those Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazines back then. Apparently, they had a cover that said that Dino Bravo beat Hogan in a house show with a bear hug.
Yep,
but he wouldn't let go of the hold. So I don't know if
they reversed it.
They reversed it, yeah. I don't know. I was like, man, he actually beat Hogan. We didn't see this shit. I mean,
yeah, you gotta love when that happens.
So we had also in this one we have I love the Jake Roberts thing. We had the Nasty Boys.
Yep.
And they
defeated one of the first. Yep. One of the first times I can remember ever seeing the Nasty Boys, and they're the ones that beat the Hart Foundation, which kind of started leading into where the Hart Foundation breaks up, and Bret just kind of does his own singles gimmick thing after starts becoming a primarily singles competitor.
Oh, we forgot about something too. In WrestleMania 5, Piper had the blackface, remember?
I do.
Bad News Brown. I mean, that's not on the network no more, obviously. But
something you probably couldn't get away with this year or in this day and age.
I think it was either WrestleMania 6 or 5. Yeah, but I think 5 he sprayed Downey Jr. in the face with.
Yeah, he sprayed Morton Downey with the fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
I remember when I was watching that one the other night, my ex-wife came into the room that I was watching it, and she just looked at Brother Love and goes, "What in the hell is that?"
Is this Bruce Pritchard?
I'm like, that's Bruce Pritchard. She goes, "He has a Jim Jones look." I'm like, that's the character. Then she listens to him talk, and he sounds like he's one of those evangelicals. That's part of the character. Like everything that she was describing, he looked like an evil guy. That's the character.
I love you.
Like everything that she was saying, I'm like, yep. WrestleMania 6 was blackface.
Yes.
So
That's
yeah,
what I was
five was Morton Downey.
Yeah.
But just everything that she was saying about friggin' Brother Love, it's just like, yep, that's what he is. Basically, he also was the Undertaker's original manager. She goes, really? I'm like, yeah, before Paul Bearer.
Huh?
She goes, holy shit. I'm like, yeah, can you think about that one now with the Undertaker character? She goes, no, it doesn't look like it fits. I'm like, that's exactly why they went away from him and went to Percy Pringle, William Moody, whichever one you want to call him, Paul Bearer. Which at the time as a kid, seeing that one and feel like, oh man, Paul Bearer, that's an interesting name. Then you find out, oh, that's what the guys are that carry the fucking casket. Oh, okay.
I think what was really cool too is that William Moody was actually a mortician, and I think that
see that just to me that's just life imitating art or art imitating life. Like
and then I found out on an interview here recently, you can look it on YouTube, Undertaker had family that worked inside a funeral home, and he saw his first body when he was like 5 or 6 years old.
Yep.
So
yeah, and it's stuff like that is just you can't make this shit up.
No.
Like you hear these stories and it's just they sound so outlandish to be true. But then when you look them up, it's absolutely 100% fact and reality. So it's just like.
So we go into WrestleMania 8. Before we get to WrestleMania 8, that's when the Rockers break up. Shawn Michaels is now on his own. He's got Sensational Sherry, and she did the first ever, I met the sexy boy. She was the first one to do the theme for that. God rest her soul. I love Sherry. Don't get me wrong.
I know that she was supposed to make it sound that nasty, but just yeah, it is heartbreaking for that.
This one also had we had Shawn Michaels defeat Tito Santana, which was a good match. The Undertaker finally turns face, saves the Macho Man from getting hit by a chair. Him and Elizabeth, and I remember the funeral thing with Jake Roberts.
Yep.
Closes Undertaker's hand in that casket. Undertaker still keeps coming at him. And Undertaker said he learned everything from Jake that he could do. And Undertaker said when he went to a strip club with Jake, he couldn't keep up with Jake.
That sounds about right. I've heard a lot of stories about Jake.
But Undertaker goes 2-0 in this one.
Yep.
Bret Hart and Roddy Piper for the Intercontinental title. That was actually really good. That was
I love the finish for that. Piper's got the sleeper on. Hart kicks off the rope.
Yep.
And ends up pinning him. And that was another one of those where it looked like and the whole thing leading up to it looked like Piper was going to do some heel tactics. It looked like he was going to hit Bret with the bell. Yep. And then he decides like, no, throws the bell out and it's like, screw it. I'm not going to go that route. And I love that you have Bobby Heenan on commentary. He's doing with Gorilla Monsoon. To me, that's the Bert and Ernie of sports of wrestling's fucking commentary is.
Well, I used to like Gorilla and Jesse the Body as well.
Don't get me wrong. Jesse was good too, but just the way Bobby Heenan acted. Bobby and Gorilla had a chemistry that was just like that. That I don't think Gorilla and Ventura had. It didn't look like it was a piece of a puzzle that went together. It looked like what happened if someone was trying to force the puzzle to go together.
The only two that I've seen that got that close was maybe Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler. Maybe.
Number one and number two in my favorites.
Maybe that's probably the closest I've seen, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bert
and I think part of that is just because of how long JR and Jerry Lawler worked together on the commentary table to where they could do it, to where they developed that.
So we had the double main event in this one. The only thing I did not like about this was because I really wanted to see Hogan and Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8.
Yeah.
But because they did a couple of house shows before then, apparently it didn't go very well. And so he decides to put Macho Man in there. Now, the one thing I love about that match between Macho Man and Ric Flair is they had the story saying that Ric Flair was trying to steal Elizabeth. That
Yep.
he had that valet. They had those little they had little videos saying Elizabeth was at his hotel room.
I remember that.
Elizabeth came out there. He won it. And then Hogan and Sid, with Harvey Wimpleman. Hogan comes out there. They have a disqualification. Here comes Papa Shango, who was actually I heard was like a couple minutes late.
Yep.
Getting down there. And then we have the return of the Warrior, who looks smaller, and everybody kept saying, "Did the Warrior die? Is that Kerry Von Erich?" I heard all those rumors when they saw that. They're like, is that really Warrior? No, that was really Jim Hellwig. He just lost the muscle mass because around that time, that's when the steroid stuff was.
Yep. So he had to kind of chillax himself out too.
And this is around the time that Hogan goes off in the sunset. He decides he's going to go make not Suburban Commando, but Mr. Nanny at this point. Yep. And he's also filming the very first ever Thunder in Paradise at this time too. So Hogan goes away during this.
Owen Hart's WrestleMania debut was WrestleMania 8 also. As Owen Hart, I don't know if he was actually the Blue Blazer or not still. Yeah. I don't think so, but he wrestled a guy named Skinner, which I think was supposed to be like an
alligator guy.
Yeah, kind of like an Aussie gimmick.
So I know that some people don't like this WrestleMania, but we're gonna touch bases a little bit. WrestleMania 9. I like the fact that they were in Vegas and they were outside. I like that concept. However, it was funny watching Bobby the Brain Heenan come down there on the camel in the wrong way. Only Bobby Heenan would do that.
I like that you had we got to see Lex Luger make his debut.
And yeah, they did a press conference the day before, and Lex Luger did that steel-plated elbow in Bret Hart's face.
Yep. But he wrestled Kurt Hennig at WrestleMania 9.
Yeah.
So it worked out really perfect for that.
Then we had Crush versus Doink the Clown.
Yep, and that was, I think, the debut, kind of more or less the debut of Doink, too. Or, well, WrestleMania debut, at least, because they had double Doinks is what it was. They had the double clown gimmick to confuse Crush, like looking in a mirror shit, which worked out really well for that.
So then we had the Intercontinental title between Tatanka with Sensational Sherry, Shawn Michaels with Luna Vachon. Luna Vachon, a lot of people don't know about the Vachon family, but they were crazy.
Oh yeah, Luna was one that didn't get the respect she deserved in WWF either.
So we had also Razor Ramon beating Bob Backlund.
Yep.
This was the WrestleMania debut of the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott. They beat the Head Skinners. I mean the Head Shrinkers, Fatu, and with Alpha, which a lot of people know that Alpha is actually Roman Reigns' dad. So
and Fatu is Rikishi.
Yeah. So we saw that there. Do we even have to talk about Undertaker getting his third victory against Giant Gonzalez?
I wouldn't even really call that much of a victory, considering he was just kind of like everything was a disqualification, and I don't even really. The match isn't all that memorable because the other guy could not wrestle. It was like watching Khali 30 years before Khali.
It was like I think he was in WCW back then as El Gigante. And couldn't even wrestle then either. But
no, and the only reason both places liked him was because he was a legitimate tall guy, because he was from Argentina and he was a professional basketball player in Argentina, which a lot of people do not know.
I actually liked the tag match between Money Inc. and Brutus and Hogan.
Oh yeah, and it made sense for them to loot for Hogan to loot and Brutus to lose that one by disqualification, or to lose that one in general, because Money Inc. was a well-established tag team that made sense. Just putting together two guys like Brutus and Hogan because they were buddies and faces, it wouldn't have worked out in the long run.
Then we had the rumor about Hogan's eye. He said it was a jet ski accident. Some people said the Macho Man punched him in the eye.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of rumors about Hogan's eye that day. But then Yoko and Bret, they actually had a pretty good.
That was a good match, and unfortunately, it got overshadowed by the politicking.
Like what Prodigal Hill said, Giant Gonzalez in that suit. Can you
He wants
imagine?
to look like a friggin' Sasquatch, and
Can you
that's right.
imagine?
That's who it was, Steve Kern.
Oh, nerds with oh, right.
Yes, he was part of the Fabulous Ones. I do remember that from Mid-South. I was
Yes.
just drawing a blank on who the hell Steve Kern, on Skinner, who he actually was. But
You
yes,
know,
Steve Kern in the Fabulous One. Steve Kern was really great.
oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. He influenced Matt Bourne. Matt,
That is true. He was in WrestleMania 1 as Matt Bourne. I do remember seeing that one. So that's why I in WrestleMania 8 or WrestleMania 9 I said something about Doink being his debut, but I meant as that character because I didn't remember him from 8.
Well, I'll tell you this though. I remember when Undertaker first saw Giant Gonzalez. When he saw Yoko, he's like, "I want to wrestle that. I want to wrestle that." And then that's when Vince went, "No, that one's yours." He's like,
Yeah, I could see Taker doing that. I could see him doing it.
The politicking though, and it just sucks though because Jimmy Hart has talked about it. There's been 2 or 3 different sides. Bret claims that Hogan was supposed to drop the belt to him at SummerSlam. Hogan claims that Vince told him that it was going to be Yoko and him, and then he was going to leave WWE after that, which he stayed and did a couple house shows afterwards after the King of the Ring. But I'm willing to bet. I remember the wrestling magazine. I don't know if you guys remember. There's a magazine where Hogan and Bret are both pulling on the belt together, and they did a photo shoot. I remember the photo shoot, and I wish I could find the picture, but it was in one of the magazines I had. And I was like, "Wow, we're gonna see this at SummerSlam. I'm game." And then Hogan's like, "Sayonara." So Hogan leaves. He comes back smaller, just like the Warrior did. And Hogan leaves, and we see a new generation being formed here in WWE now, in WWF now. So we go to WrestleMania 10. It's at Madison Square Garden. I know me and you were talking about this. The Bret Hart Owen Hart match.
That is one of my favorite matches of all time to see. It literally gives you the sibling rivalry that people love to see because almost everybody has a sibling or probably at one point in time you've got somebody who's close to you as a sibling if you don't have an actual sibling.
I had a sibling rivalry with my brother. Believe me.
I've got 13 years between me and my brother. We still had that sibling rivalry, and now as adults, both of us adults, me 35, him 22, we still act like fucking 12-year-olds at times, mutual 12-year-olds.
Now, yeah, it's funny because my brother's now starting to go to the gym, and he knows that I've been to the gym. Now he's trying to outdo me, and it's like
mine already knows that he can outdo me because he's in the Navy. He works out all the time, and I'm out of shape, even though I wrestle.
But the WrestleMania 10 card also had one of the first ever ladder matches, and probably one of my favorite ladder matches of all time. The late great Scott Hall, Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
And they had the whole thing where Luger and Bret both get a shot at Yokozuna for the title. I remember Burt Reynolds was there, where they had the some celebrity people. Burt Reynolds was there. Earthquake defeated Adam Bomb, and we were talking about Earthquake. And Earthquake, like I said, we were talking about Earthquake, and that man does not get enough credit.
No. Hell, to be honest, as for the big guys, Yoko doesn't get really enough credit for having the ability to do some of the things he could too at his size. So
then we had Alundra Blaze.
Yep.
She defended the women's championship. Savage was facing Crush at the time. Bam Bam Bigelow, Luna Vachon defeated Doink the Clown and Dink. Dink the Clown. That was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, I remember that. What was it? One year they had when Survivor Series used to be the 4-on-4 teams. It was Doink the Clown and 3 midget clowns, I think, against what was it, Jerry Lawler and three little midgets that were dressed up like kings also.
Yeah, we had the Heavenly Bodies that were by Tom Pritchard and Jimmy Del Rey with Jim Cornette defeating the Bushwhackers.
Heavenly Bodies. Tom Pritchard was another guy that's always been highly underrated to me.
Yes, definitely. So not really much of that WrestleMania card except for really...
Like the most standout matches are obviously it was Luger and Yoko that Luger ends up winning, or sorry, Yoko ends up winning by a DQ. You've got the ladder match that set the stage for future ladder matches because there had been ladder matches before. Then of course you had Bret and Owen.
I'll tell you what, if Sean would have joined WCW, I don't know what Poston just said, Procol Hill. If Sean would have joined with Nash and Hall and they would have formed the NWO, that would have fucked up everything for Hogan.
Oh, yeah.
That would have definitely... Hogan was at that point, people in the South were booing him. They didn't want to see him anymore.
Yep. Because his gimmick was old and stale at that point.
But we go into WrestleMania 11, and we have Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam.
LT versus Bam Bam. Oh, yeah.
I have to give Lawrence Taylor some credit, though. He did spend a couple months in the ring trying to learn how to do stuff.
Yep. He took the time to get used to being in the ring and wrestling. We had...
Diesel was champ.
Yep, Diesel was champ. Had Jeff Jarrett with a young road dog known as the Roadie at that point, and that wrestled with Razor for the Intercontinental belt and lost. Owen and Yoko.
Yeah, the one thing I mentioned, the one thing I liked about that Shawn and Diesel match is, and I think Sid turned on him after this.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. They was
Sid does.
Yeah. So Jenny McCarthy, well, apparently Pam Anderson was supposed to come out with Shawn, but she didn't want to, so she came out with Diesel. And at that time, Pamela Anderson was like the most popular woman on the planet.
Yep, she was the hot ticket, so she decided to come out with the champ instead of the sexy boy.
Let me clarify. Jenny McCarthy's no slouch either.
Oh hell no, she was beautiful in her younger years too.
Yeah, so there was no slouch to that.
It's too bad that beauty didn't equate to brains too, as her anti-vax lifestyle. Dumbass.
Yeah. So Undertaker with Paul Bearer defeated King Kong Bundy. This is when Undertaker came back with the black and purple and defeated the other Undertaker. And
1994 comes back from Sean or from all that. Because was it 94 or 95 was that SummerSlam? I thought it was 94 was the SummerSlam of
it was
Taker versus Underfaker.
Yeah. Undertaker, Mark Calloway versus Brian Lee. Yeah.
Yep. Which I believe was up until that point, before he did that, the only other thing he did was Duke. He was Duke Droese, Duke the Dumpster, the garbage man.
So the one thing about that is that Royal Rumble where Undertaker lost in that casket, that as a kid, that scared the fuck out of me. I was like I couldn't understand why he was talking in the casket. And so when I started going to house shows and Undertaker came back with the black and purple, I used to like go like this every time he would do that whole.
I apologize for the moving here. What the fan base doesn't know is the other day I came into an unfortunate actual accident. So trying to clean up really quick here just to make sure so I don't have any infections that cause some serious adverse side effects to my health.
You didn't get bit by a gremlin, right? You didn't get bit by a gremlin.
No, I got bit by a dog.
There you go. The only thing I hated about this was that Diesel and Shawn was not the main event. It was Lawrence Taylor, and they had all those football guys with them, Steve McMichael, Ken
Yeah,
Norton, Reggie White.
Mongo, Reggie White,
Ricky Jackson, Carl Banks, Ken Norton Jr. Yeah, but Bret Hart and Bob Backlund were having a good thing there at the time, because I remember that Survivor Series before that, or they had the whole throw in the towel thing because Bret was in that chicken wing.
Yep.
For the longest time. You gotta give Bret credit too, because that chicken wing hurts like a motherfucker. You locked that in really good.
Oh yeah, and Bob Backlund knew how to wrestle. He knew how to do it, how to do everything. So he did it properly.
I had a friend that meet Bob Backlund at a convention. He asked Backlund to put him in the chicken wing. My God, Backlund put that motherfucker in the chicken wing, and he latched on to it too.
Yep.
But we got WrestleMania 12 here, and obviously the biggest match on there was the 60-man Iron Man match between Bret and Shawn.
Yes,
Any match that Bret and Shawn did back then was gold already, but this one had some controversy because they both didn't. No one got the pinfall. Then it was a 60-minute. It was over. Gorilla Monsoon comes out and goes, add an extra 30. Or sudden death.
We're going to sudden death overtime, boys.
Sudden death overtime. Yep.
So, which I mean, at the same time for that, I don't know why the hell they would have needed to say sudden death overtime. Just say we're going into overtime, because whoever got the first one, it was going to be done. And
I love the fact that Piper and Dustin Rhodes is Gold Dust at that time. You can say what you want about Dustin Rhodes, but he made that Gold Dust gimmick work.
Yes, he did.
I mean, you could throw that out there. He had Marlena. He had his real ex-wife with him at that time. Him and Piper had that fight all over the place, which I thought was pretty cool. Pretty cool fight.
The backlot brawl. Complete with the OJ chase.
Yeah. Yes. A lot of people forget about that, but the OJ chase was in there. Piper was driving that Bronco.
Yeah, and Piper... The story after that is that shitty-ass Bronco that Vince McMahon bought to do that with, he gave it to Piper after WrestleMania. He goes, why do I need this shit?
So then we had the return of the Warrior, because Warrior was doing comic books at the time, so obviously he needed someone to promote his comic books. Go in there and beats Triple H. We get to see Sable for the first time, because she came out with Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And Sable was beautiful.
We also had Steve. I don't think he was known as Stone Cold Steve Austin at this point still.
No, but
I think he was still known as the Ringmaster Steve Austin.
But he had the bald head and the black trunks going on.
Yep. He had the $1 Million Man as his manager.
It'd be interesting if he locks on the $1 Million Dream on Kevin Owens. I would laugh my ass off if he does it. It's not going to happen, I don't think. But
I don't think it will either, but it'd be nice to see something like that happen and go down.
The one match that stands for me on this one, because they took time to build this one, was Diesel and Nash and Undertaker.
Oh yeah, they definitely built that properly. And thankfully Kevin Nash was able to stay healthy through everything for it too. I know a lot of people make jokes, but it's never fun to watch somebody go down with an injury, even if the stance is leading up to it. It's just like, how can this happen to you again?
Kudos to Kevin Nash, because WrestleMania 31, when they came out with Sting and they were helping him facing DX and he got hit, Kevin Nash actually grabbed his knee. And everybody thought oh my God, did he hurt himself again? Nash was
like, yeah, I remember that. Because everybody makes the jokes like, Kevin Nash stepped into the ring. Oh, he tore his bicep or he tore his quad. Like, all he did was come in the ring. Yep, something's torn. Oh, he's got his arm out for the tag. You better be careful not to tear his arm.
For two big men, though, I really loved this match between these two. It was.
Oh yeah, and they. I think they had a better match. To me, they had a better match than Shawn, and I think he would too. Heel. if Stone Cold shows up to wrestle, I think he'll put Kevin Owens over because he's not coming out of retirement.
Well, now he went on this Rich Eisen show and said that now he's. I wonder if all this time he's fully healed and now he's missing stuff.
I don't know if he'd be able to get back into it though. He's what, late 50s?
He's in his mid 50s, yeah.
I mean, if you look at him now to look at him like 20 years ago and look at his body, he's he'd have to really hit the gym for months before he could even think about having another re-debut.
Stone Cold's built. He's big now.
I saw him not too long ago without a shirt, and he's lost a lot of that muscle mass in that chest.
Oof.
He's not quite as bad as Flair or Hogan, but he's definitely got some of the flab going.
Something's wrong with you see Kofi Kingston's chest and Undertaker's. There's like
Kofi's is a joke. Kofi makes a joke out of his and said that he got chopped by the Big Show. I think it was in like 2009.
Yeah.
And ever since then, but Kofi actually has a legitimate, it's a legit for him. It's actually, he's talked about it before. It's something genetic.
Yeah.
So his there's no fixing that. He's got to be careful. That's all I know.
So then we have, WrestleMania. That also the night after this is when Mick Foley debuts as Mankind and attacks the Undertaker.
Yep, that is the day after WrestleMania 12.
And that's when it used to be great. WrestleMania, the Raws after WrestleMania used to be so magical because you never knew what the hell was going to happen.
I'd love to see him come back as a GM. Not Mick. Steve. Put him in charge of SmackDown. Get rid of Sonya Deville.
Oh my God, this whole Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce thing is
don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with either one of them. As individuals, just because who is it that runs Raw right now? Is it Stephanie?
They both run Raw and SmackDown together, so they're GMs on both shows.
Okay, so they co-GM Raw and SmackDown. Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. Because if you sit there and you start playing 2K22. The GM on 2K22 isn't Sonya Deville or anything. Adam Pearce is in charge of SmackDown. William Regal's NXT. And if you choose to go to Raw, it's Mandy Rose, who is the GM for the game for that. And it's like, wait, what?
Can you question about that game? Can you create yourself and make yourself a GM?
No.
Oh,
at least not that I've seen yet.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anybody who's going to be listening to this that plans to get it, if they haven't already. If you are going to buy it for the GM mode, do not. It is lacking as hell on the GM mode, in my opinion. And I am not impressed. It is nothing at all like I was hoping for. I was hoping for something like the original Raw versus SmackDown, where you draft and then you can get talent, you can get the legends and everything, and you just build up the best show. So,
well, here's the thing. We're going to WrestleMania 13. This is the first ever WrestleMania with The Rock, as Rocky Maivia and his dad helped him to get the Sultan. The Sultan's actually Rikishi. Yeah. What's interesting was the Sultan,
family wrestling family,
and the Sultan comes out with Bob Backlund and Iron Sheik, two mortal enemies.
Yep.
The Undertaker Sid match.
We got Flash Funk in there too.
The Undertaker Sid match I liked. I liked the whole Bret Hart thing because I went to the Raw before all that, and Bret, when he lost the belt to Sid, Austin kept interfering all the time and screwing Bret, which I thought was.
You're not missing anything, by the way, heel. The product today is nothing like it was for all of us growing up.
The Prodigal Hill is more of a territory guy. He likes NWA Power and Impact. He thinks that wrestling should go back to that.
I agree. I would love to see the territory days again.
Yeah, I mean
I think that would be a breath of fresh air for wrestling if we went back to territory ways.
And I think if Triple H was in charge of WWE, we would.
Either that, or if they didn't have the territory days, that forbidden curtain, forbidden door, whatever, it gets torn down because we already had, what was it, the TNA Impact with Mickie James. She was in the Royal Rumble. They had a couple of people, I think, from our Ring of Honor that were a part of the Royal Rumble, if I remember right, this year. It'd be nice to see that curtain, that fence just go away, and people are like, hey, can we borrow so-and-so for this long, and we'll give you a cut of the pay for anything that they sell?
Yeah.
Just like territories used to do. You kind of loan out talent.
We also have, too, in this match, though, it was originally supposed to be Bret and Shawn, too. And apparently, this is the time where Shawn lost his smile.
Yep. Shawn lost the smile, so Bret thinks that it was because he didn't want to drop the belt back to him and whatnot. So they decided to go with the Austin Hart match, which to me, so much better. Yeah. I think that's better than anything that Bret and Shawn could have done for WrestleMania 13, because that is what helped lead Stone Cold to be on the map.
The story, it was a great story because it went from the story of Stone Cold calling out Bret. They have that match in Survivor Series. Or he has the $1 Million Dream in, and he does the same thing to Steve Austin they did to Piper back then.
Mm-hmm.
Backs up, does a pin. This time around, though, the crowd split so much in Chicago with this.
Yeah.
I think Bret did some of his best work when the Hart Foundation were heels. I thought this was some of the best work.
When he starts feuding with Steve and the Hart Foundation reforms, and you got Owen, Anvil,
Brian
Pillman, Bulldog, and Bret, and you got the five of them feuding with Steve Austin, and then when Hunter and Triple H and Shawn formed the original iteration of DX, yeah, that's some of the best work that Bret Hart had in his later WWF run.
And what's cool was Undertaker gets his second ever WWE Championship win.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, you would think all that time, wow, he won it for 91, and then 91 to 97, he finally gets his second one.
Yeah.
But they give him a lengthy title run in this time, and he comes back with the black and gray. I always wanted to see Taker retire with that. I don't know why, but I've always wanted him to.
It would have been nice to see that.
A quick little joke though. Undertaker said in an interview that when he tombstone Sid that last time Sid shit himself. So when he had him in the tombstone, he's smelling all that shit that Sid had.
You know, I don't really know much about Moose, but good God, that would be a good hell of a way to build something up.
Moose is a beast on Impact. He's a former football player. He's very good on the mic, and him and Roman could probably tear the house down. That's I agree with that part. Now we go into WrestleMania 14. Tyson. Having Mike Tyson involved, that's when Kevin Nash told Stone Cold.
We're not even going to start. We're not even going to start with that one. We're going to start with the beginning of the card for this one, because this is one of my favorite manias. I love the reemergence of LOD 2000 coming in with Sonny and the whole new gimmick, and they had the 15-team battle royal to win that, to get a tag team championship.
Yep,
fucking love that. You have. I want to say the first ever defense for the light heavyweight title, or it was the finals for the light heavyweight title with Taka Michinoku winning that, because WCW had the cruiserweight belt, which is where they specialized for years and years, and it just WWE never really knew what to do with the smaller guys. So I know it was really sad because Taka Michinoku had a hell of a lot of talent for a small guy.
Yeah, he did.
And unfortunately they turned him kind of into a joke character in the later parts of his years with Kai and Tai and Funaki and that stuff.
I still like the fact they have Funaki as the Japanese guy, and he still goes, indeed.
Yeah. And it's kind of a homage to it. You had a great match for the European title with Hunter and Owen.
Yes.
China was handcuffed to Slaughter for that one and still managed to get involved. But they sold that story perfect. Hunter and Owen had some of the best chemistry in the ring between the two of them. And they worked so many matches together that were so great over the years. And it's scary because I think that if Owen wouldn't have passed away when he did,
yeah,
if Triple H would have been able to get the heavyweight title, I could have seen him and Owen having a long-standing feud back and forth with that belt instead of Triple H and The Rock.
And they still could have used the whole Shawn and they could have used the Shawn and Bret story in that too.
Mm-hmm.
And, another that we saw The Rock defend the IC title against Ken Shamrock.
Yep.
Those two had a good feud.
Who I believe actually, if I remember right, I don't know unless that was Royal Rumble. Shamrock wins, and then gets disqualified because he won't release the ankle lock.
Yeah,
he did his whole little snap. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. The way, and that would probably be one guy that in that day and age in WWF, I would have been actually scared to probably get into a ring with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because he had the legitimate fighting UFC background that you don't know if he's going to actually snap and go after you or if he's going to do business.
So we had the New Age Outlaws facing Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, Terry Funk in a dumpster match.
Terry Funk, yep.
I mean, Terry Funk's first, I think that was his first ever WrestleMania, if I'm not mistaken with Terry Funk.
I think it's his only WrestleMania he's ever been in.
I know he was in a WWF at the time because I remember he did a main event match, Saturday Night's main event with Hogan.
Yep.
But
yeah, he had been around in the WWF here and there because he was in a couple. No, he was in a couple of other WrestleManias.
Yeah,
he was not with his brother, not with Dory, but he was in there with another one of his brothers. I want to say it was WrestleMania 4, or not WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 3.
Might have been that, yeah. I think.
But yeah, Terry Funk's been in a couple WrestleManias because he's obviously been around for a long time. He's in his 70s, 80s now too.
This was a great story too because at this time Paul Bear's coming back saying that the Undertaker's parents got murdered because of
Taker murdered his family. He calls him a murderer.
And he didn't want to face his brother. Then that Royal Rumble match, he finally was like, you know what?
They built the first Taker Kane match. Perfect.
Yeah. And
I loved it. If you listen to how if you hear about how Jim Cornette tells it and how Vince Russo wanted to do it, we wouldn't have even gotten anywhere near that. They decided to put that thing into the slow cooker and let it go. And Vince Russo wanted him to pretty much be done with it 2 weeks later because he was a fucking idiot.
Yo, bro. What's up, bro? Don't be talking about that, bro.
There are some things that I think Vince Russo was a genius with.
Right.
But there is more things more bad things that he did with the business that pissed me off. It's not enough to make me say, I can't go either way. No, it's definitely more towards, can we just get this guy's name out of the history of the books?
So Kevin Nash said on the Austin's podcast that when Mike Tyson came in, him and Hogan looked at Eric Bischoff and said, we're screwed. We're in trouble now. And that's so we had Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet at that time. Him and Austin had that little showdown at Raw, and then all of a sudden Tyson joins DX. They built that story perfect too, because that was right before Shawn had to disappear. He disappeared for years because of his back. So he was going after WrestleMania 14 for what, 4.5, 5 years roughly. A lot of people don't know this, but in 2000, Shawn had a ladder match at his wrestling company against another wrestler.
Oh, no shit.
A lot of people didn't know that. Yeah, Shawn.
I didn't either.
Shawn got in the ring in 2000.
Maybe that was to see if he'd be able to handle it again before he got in touch with his buddies up in WWE to say, hey, I want to come back.
Now, here's the thing with that match.
Although he did stay on after he dropped the belt and everything, he did stick around in the business because he was or in the company because he was under contract, but he just had that like
Commissioner
backstage role, so like the on-screen commissioner. So
now, the one thing about this match though is, you didn't get Sean's best, but it was still good. Like you didn't because Sean was hurt. I mean,
for having a broken back the way Sean did, if the story is fully true from what Taker and them all say, because it's not just Sean that tells the story. Because if it would have just been Sean at that day and age, Sean, you kind of would have had to take everything he said with a grain of salt because he was always all about the drugs and the parties and the drinking. So you kind of had to take everything he said with like I said, that grain of salt. Like, are you sure you're not embellishing a little bit there, Heartbreak Kid?
The story goes from what I hear, what Kane said, what Taker said, and a couple guys, Triple H said, when he had that casket match at the Royal Rumble, Taker froze him over and a piece of his back hits the
you can see where his back clips the corner of that coffin, and that's where it has that problem. That's where that problem happens. You don't even have to slow the video down to see it. Anybody that wants to look for it, just watch the whole match too. If anybody that watches this podcast, if you don't know what I'm already talking about or what we're talking about, I'm sure Prodigal Heel knows exactly what it is. I know Superstar is going to know exactly what it is that we're talking about.
Now,
by the way, I will say I think that would have been actually really good to see, as I would have loved to have seen Bret drop the title to his brother before Sean too. Sorry, I'm not trying. I don't know if all the comments are getting popped up there for everybody to see, but I can see the ones that Prodigal Heel's making here, and that one I'm in full agreement with that one. I would have loved to have seen that happen. That's one of my biggest regrets is that Owen didn't get a chance to really hold anything more, I think, than the European title and the tag belts. I don't think he ever had the Intercontinental belt.
I felt like Owen got punished when he power drive Steve's head. I think when that happened.
Not only that, but then after Bret decided to leave. Because at the same time, if you listen, Bret basically stooged himself. He fucking ratted himself out. He was trying to get a hold of Owen and everybody else and Jim and them and say, hey, you guys should come down here with me. That's why they locked up Owen in that big contract with WWE and basically told Bret, hey, if you keep calling your brother, we're going to sue you. So, Vince wasn't playing around.
And the story goes, Sean wasn't wanting to play ball. Sean was talking about not dropping in Austin. And the story goes, and I thought Cornette was lying to me at the convention, but obviously it was true because Sean mentioned it, Bruce Pritchard mentioned it, Undertaker mentioned it.
I was going to say Taker's mentioned it a lot. I know exactly where you're talking about. Taker was standing in gorilla position with his fists taped.
Yep.
He was ready to go out there and fucking lay out Sean if he didn't do the job.
And once the match was over, he got back up, and what Bruce Pritchard said, he started untaping and went, okay, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
So we got WrestleMania 15. I can't believe we're at the WrestleMania 15 now, but we have this is the Attitude Era now.
Yep. Now we're into the thick of the Attitude Era at this point now.
They had a really good tag team with Owen and Jeff Jarrett with Deborah.
You know what? I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say it because I know this is one since it just popped up. Prodigal Heel and I would get along real fucking well behind the scenes because I am in full agreement. Owen was my favorite one of the Hart families, and he had the charisma.
Owen did, yeah, absolutely.
I think he had more. Bret had more of a technical sense. I think Owen was really good on his own for the technical side of it. I think Bret's was a little bit more slow-paced, methodical. Owens was able to be a little bit more high-flyer, methodical, and technical. But Owen definitely had more of the charisma.
This is the first time we get to see Stone Cold and The Rock. Number one.
Yep, this is the first time they face off for the title.
And I love the way they did it because The Rock turns face, goes to Survivor Series, aligns with the corporation. And this is when The Rock was really like coming into his own. Like it was calling everybody a 500-pound stinking pile of monkey crap and wearing the $500 shirts. And I mean, I love all three Rock and Austin matches, but I'm torn between
I don't know which one I would say my favorite one is. I don't know if it would be 15 or if it would be
17 or 19. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
17 is a really good one too, because that's when Stone Cold. Well, we'll get to that one.
But we had
I'm ahead of myself here.
We had the Brawl for All, Butterbean versus Bart Gunn.
That is one of those things where I say Russo needs to fucking go away. And yes, agreed with that one too. Heel.
Yes.
Bret had the ring presence. He had the ring tech. He had the ring awareness that Owen. He had it more than Owen did. Not that Owen didn't have it. Just Bret had it mastered more than Owen did.
And we saw Sable. She defended the women's championship versus Tori. This is when Sable was the bad girl.
This was right after Playboy.
Right.
So she had that all about that. You guys came here to see the grind, and Tori was the obsessed fan that somehow managed to get a contract that apparently had never wrestled before, but still was signed because it made no sense for how that storyline came up. And then a ridiculous freaking outfit she had.
Could you imagine Xavier Michaels being the new Val Venus? I can. I don't know why. I can see him being the new Val Venus going, "Hello, ladies."
There's a scary thought.
Well, especially when he sent me that fucking ass picture on my birthday. I mean, I kind of was.
Sorry you had to see that.
So we had Undertaker being the Ministry of Darkness. He beats Big Boss Man, but not only does he beat Big Boss Man, he hangs him.
Yep, in a Hell in a Cell match on top of that.
Right, first Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania, right there. And that's it goes into Undertaker's streak again.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had Kane versus
Shane McMahon and Test,
yeah. This was some pretty good stuff. Ryan Shamrock was around at that point, you know, Ken Shamrock's sister.
Yep.
And
he had the Blue Meanie and everything too, who's another guy that was probably not suited for WWE lifestyle, WWF lifestyle, but on his own, not too bad with the Blue World Order and everything in ECW with Steven Richards.
Was it since Kevin likes paranormal? I think Roddy Piper was haunted by Owen Hart supposedly. Actually, I heard that story.
I've heard that one too.
Yeah, to be honest with you, though, WrestleMania 16, we go into this.
Well, hold on. Who are you talking about, heel? You said who when we're talking about Ryan Shamrock and the Blue Meanie. Is it Ryan Shamrock that you're not sure about, or the Blue Meanie?
I'm sure he's not. I would think
I know Blue Meanie's been around for a while because he got his name from the Beatles. Because the Blue Meanie is the bad guy from the movie, the Yellow Submarine. A lot of people don't know that one. I mean, you've got to really like old school rock music for that.
I know that one because Mel's stepdad up north has got like Beatle collection insured for like $1 million.
But Ryan Shamrock was a gal that was an indie wrestler in the mid late 90s that outside of playing that character, he was also a part of the Job Squad.
Yeah,
Blue Meanie was.
Who JBL hates.
Yeah. Well, JBL just hated Meanie for some reason. I mean, he got his receipts for that, for the shit he pulled, if you hear that story.
Yeah.
Because Vince, and for that story, Vince even told him, you're going to have to go out there and you're going to have to take it. No fucking choice. You're gonna. So, Steven Richards was given the one free shot, and he made sure that he made it worth it.
This is the first WrestleMania where Undertaker and Stone Cold are not a part of.
WrestleMania 16?
Yeah, because Undertaker was working to come back, and then he tore his rotator cuff while he was working, and this is when Austin had that neck surgery.
Oh, yeah, WrestleMania. No, it wasn't WrestleMania 16. That was WrestleMania 2000.
2000.
That's why it sounds so. That's why 16 sounds off.
WrestleMania 2000. Now, what's great about that one is they have the new TNA Test and Albert with Trish Stratus, who at that time, if you didn't like Trish Stratus at that time, and now, I mean, Trish Stratus in her mid 40s is,
whew, yeah, she's still very beautiful.
Very beautiful. And this is
oh my god, the Hardcore Battle Royal. I forgot about that.
Yes, the Hardcore Battle Royal.
Yeah, the Holly cousins that were always fighting with each other. Hardcore and Sean or Crash, Will Crash out, weighing in at allegedly well over 400 pounds.
We had a triangle ladder match.
That was the first, and that is what set up the famous TLC contests.
Yes.
Without WrestleMania 2000's ladder match, which to me, I would have made that the main event.
Yeah, because then we had the other main event where it was the McMahons all supporting Triple H and The Rock. And
you had The Rock, you had
Big Show,
Mick Foley, you had the Big Show, and
then Vince on The Rock.
Funny story about that, and I know this one's actually true because I've heard it from a handful of people. There's actually a poster that does not have Mick Foley on it. It has somebody else that's supposed to be in Mick Foley's place.
Chris Jericho.
Yep. Now, I think that would have been better. Honestly, no disrespect to Mick Foley. I love Mick. He's a great person.
Yeah.
I've got the ability to meet him a couple of times. I really wish I could get in a ring with him, but neither one of our bodies probably could take it. Especially his, more than mine. But yeah, it should have been Jericho in place of in place of that instead of him. Hi, Mel.
Hello.
Where's that grapefruit trick you're supposed to show us?
The what?
A grapefruit. You know,
wow. I'm walking away now. No.
She what's great too about WrestleMania 2000 is we have Chris Jericho and Benoit and Kurt Angle.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we ended up that. I'll take what we could get for that one because that was a hell of an IC title match with Benoit, Angle, and Jericho. And I think if you're going to take Jericho out of the main event and put him in something else, I don't think you could have done any better than that. The three of them that when they worked together, Chris and both Chris's worked together so well. And I don't think Kurt really could have a bad match with anybody. I think Kurt was just one of those that his original run, as much as I couldn't stand it because of he had that, and it wasn't even Kurt the man. It was just how the character was like.
Jimmy Crack Corn, and I don't care.
Yeah, the shit like that, like, not even shit like that, because that was the Alliance Kurt Angle, but like he was that heel that you wanted to hate. He made it so that you would want to hate him.
Now
he had a feud with Big Show, and he's walking through a mall yelling at people about learning abstinence and shit like that. Don't have sex, and I mean they planted this mall full of teenagers and young adults and stuff, and they made it to where you would want to, because then you've got Big Show who comes in walking, he's got blown up condoms on his head, free condoms, throwing them at people. Like it became a feud. He made the feuds to where you wanted to hate the heel, and that is what you should have done. That is what they needed to do.
And Procol Hill's comment, Trish Stratus is hot. It's a hot little
pocket rocket.
So short.
She's what, 5 foot? 5'1", something like that? 5'2"?
Yeah, about that. 5'2".
She's the same height as my ex-wife, which is not a problem to me. I mean, I'm not exactly a fucking 6'5" asshole here, so I'm average height. I'm 5'11".
Oh, by the way, I have a comment for you here. Someone wrote me on Facebook. What would happen if Nate the effing Great wore Giant Gonzalez outfit? I mean,
I'm not touching that with a 2 foot, 10 foot, 20 foot, 40-foot pole.
so we go on the
I'll let somebody else handle that one. I'll let Superstar take that question.
WrestleMania 17.
Austin Rock 2. No disqualification.
I love the story to this because it's like who runs over Stone Cold?
Yep.
Austin's back. And
yeah,
we have the TLC match, and we get to see Rhino involved. We get to see the spear off the top.
Mm-hmm.
Lita gets involved. I still love Lita to this day. She was my.
We get to see China had her feud with Ivory, and I'm kind of glad that they made China fight with the men, because it did a lot for women for wrestling, because she was so jacked compared to the other women, the other divas, whatever you want to call them at that time.
Yeah.
That it's essentially the only person that if she were still around in this day and age, or would have been, the only other person that she really would have been able to wrestle was probably Awesome Kong, and really kind of be on par with each other, because they were so big for women and they were so jacked that it just looked like they would walk all over the rest of the women's roster.
We can talk about all the WrestleManias out there, but Chris Benoit faced Kurt Angle in this one.
Yep. Just a regular old singles match, too, and it was a beauty of a match.
We had the Legends Battle Royal.
See, I like that, but at the same time, knowing some of the stuff that you do about it, it's kind of heartbreaking for what happens, because you've got people that are like Iron Sheik was one that he couldn't really do a whole lot because his knees were so bad at that point in his life, and still are. You had Triple H, the first ever meeting with Undertaker and Triple H, and they built that story up really good too. Triple H was saying there, I'm beating the best and everything, and this is my yard taker, biker taker. On top of that, not like Ministry of Darkness or even Deadman. This was American Badass Taker, which I really liked. I kind of wish that he was still able to do that, because it gave him a chance to kind of do more of the ground and pound style power-based fighting instead of just relying on the gimmick.
Well, I know we were going to go through every WrestleMania, but I decided we're just not going to do that because there's so many of them.
Yeah. Hi, puppers. Aw.
But
thank you.
We all know what happens at WrestleMania 18.
Yep.
Hogan and Rock.
Hogan and Rock brought the show down for that one.
Triple H and Jericho.
Yep.
And then WrestleMania 19, we see Hogan and Vince, which I thought was 20 years in the making, which I thought was pretty good.
And it was, I mean, the match was at the same time was kind of lackluster, but I mean, what do you expect?
It was a street fight, yeah.
Undertaker and was supposed to have his little protege, Nathan, well, not little, was supposed to have Nathan Jones as a tag team, and the guy just, he never came to fruition as a wrestler. I mean, he's a decent actor. You can see him in a handful of different things as an actor, and he plays a good asshole bad guy actor. Just for some reason he couldn't get it, and he's a hell of a martial artist. So it's not that the guy doesn't have athletic ability. It's just apparently wrestling wasn't him.
There's a lot of great WrestleMania matches, everybody. There's like, you can go down the list.
Shawn and Jericho at 19.
Shawn and Jericho, yep.
And they built up to that perfect because Shawn was the only one who had won from position number 1 at Royal Rumble, and Jericho wanted to steal that, so he was fighting to try to get it. And going into WrestleMania, somebody said, "Oh, well, you can't have number 1. Somebody's already got it." And you go, "Who?" And then Shawn just walks up behind him and just, "Hi."
And then later on, they had that other great feud that busts Shawn's eye on the on the Jericho-tron. And
now the one match on WrestleMania 19 that really broke my heart is the one that I think everybody unanimously agrees is utter bullshit, and that is Triple H and Booker T.
Yup.
Booker T was still one of the hottest things on the planet for that, and he was one of the few WCW guys that came over that was able to get over with the fans still, that they could not bury, which unfortunately is what happened with a lot of WCW guys that came over to WWF, is they got buried. And
yeah, you know, we go into these WrestleManias. We can talk. We can go. I mean, I could go far with this one, but it's too many WrestleManias for us to be here for like 4 hours to talk about.
Yeah.
I will say this though.
If you're willing to, I'd at least want to go up to 26, and that's just because I will, or at least 25, because I want to talk about Taker Shawn.
We can actually talk about just some of the matches on some of the other ones, not every one of them.
Yeah, yeah. We don't have to. We can talk like the big ones.
WrestleMania 19, Rock finally gets that monkey off his back.
Yep.
Beats Stone Cold, and then right after the match is over, you see him lean. He says, "I love you." And Austin's like, "I love you too." The night after, the return of the debut of Goldberg.
Yep.
And Booker T did get fucked over on that one. I thought Booker T should at least had a title run of some sort.
I mean, he did. Now he did get his title run down the line, but he didn't get it from Triple H at Mania, which is when it would have done wonders for him as a character and for as a career.
Well, I just got a text. I might not have too much time, so we're just going to go all the way into WrestleMania 25, just because we know there's some WrestleMania matches that were great.
That works for me.
Now, explain the Undertaker Shawn match. I know you were itching to do it. I'll let you.
WrestleMania 25's Undertaker Shawn match to me was an excellent match, and they didn't really need to build that one. And they didn't really build up 25s. They wanted to see if he could break the streak. I was scared to death with the dive not Triple H, that Taker makes over the top rope. Like it looks like he gives himself that nice little scorpion tail.
Yeah.
And it was scary because I thought he was seriously hurt. And it just the so many false finishes for that match. Normally, like I hate to agree with the guy, but Superstar and I are two guys that are not big fans of multiple false finishes.
I'm not either. Yeah, I get you.
But in that case, oh my God, did that tell the story and did that make it so great? That is what made the match. Is there were so many tombstones, choke slams, super kicks, elbows, 9 counts to get out back into the ring. That WrestleMania told an entirely perfect story to lead into WrestleMania 26 for the streak versus the career.
Hey, you know what we could do if you're up for it next week? We could try to do a part 2, so that way we get this. That would give, because I will be honest, I've been kind of lacking on the last few years' worse, so that'd give me a chance to kind of get up to speed with them too. I got up to speed with the older stuff, and then once we got to Attitude Era, I grew up with it. I know that stuff like the back of my hand. You know, Prodigal Hill said that he didn't watch the Sting and Triple H. It should have been Sting and Undertaker.
Yeah. And then maybe next week what we can do is we can come back and do a part 2, and we can do They give us a chance to kind of write up like a fantasy, but like this is how I would book a fantasy WrestleMania. Now I know when I was talking to Superstar about it, and he said like any person, any era, whatnot, because he would love to see. He would have loved to have seen if he could take any people from wherever ever. He would take Gorgeous George and put him up against Gold Dust, and I'm like, oh shit.
Holy shit! Yeah, that's a good.
I'm like, that would be an interesting gimmick. I think I would, and I'm not trying to outdo it, but I'm wondering if I wouldn't maybe make it a triple threat and have the two of them and then throw in adorable Adrian Adonis when he started doing that gimmick. And because it was like a mixture of the two.
Yeah.
Except for the guy was just big. He was a big boy. And unfortunately, that's another guy that didn't even get to scratch the surface of his talent before his untimely passing in a car accident.
Yes, indeed.
So he was the same age when he passed away. He was the same age I was in a car accident. He was like 34, 35 years old.
I remember WrestleMania 3. That was Piper's last match for a while because he went to go do that. He went to go do the Hollywood movies, and they cut Adrian Adonis's hair at WrestleMania 3. That's another thing we forgot to mention.
Yeah, and I love how if you look when he's got the camera up and he turns and sees it, because I don't think Adonis really knew what he was getting himself into with that one, and they just kind of went to town. Just to do, he looks at the camera and he screams, "What the fuck?" And you can read his lips and see that as he starts chasing Piper. Like, I think he was legitimately pissed backstage, like that that Brutus did that.
So what we're going to do next week is we're going to pick a date, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, maybe we might get Superstar in here. I don't know how long he's got his kids for. Maybe we might be able to get Nate in here. So we can talk about WrestleMania. We're going to talk a little bit about 20 to. We forgot about 20, but we'll talk about 20, 21, and 3 and 4, and might even talk about 6. I don't want to go further into WrestleMania because those WrestleManias are there's really not.
I mean, when you get to like 28, 29, where you got Rock and Cena, I mean, that's about the only real good thing about those because they built the stories up for it.
I will say this though. We're going to do our WrestleMania bookings next to part 2. We're also going to talk about our favorite WrestleMania matches. We'll give y'all or maybe our top 5 or top 10 favorite WrestleMania matches. And
I'm going to say we're going to go with top 10 because top 5, that's going to be really hard to narrow down.
And maybe we could actually bring the Prodigal Hill in.
By all means, if he wants to join, I'd welcome that. I'd welcome, say, bring it on, man.
We'll bring that on.
More people that we got in here to just go back and forth and bullshit with and reminisce about the good days of wrestling because the product is nothing like it was 15 years ago.
This is the message out to Superstar. PK challenged you one time, told you to come in here, and then when you agree to come in here, then you don't come. So now I have to say, man, PK is ready to fight. A man got bit by a dog, taped his hand up, and still.
I can't even make a whole fist, and I'm still ready to slap the shit out you.
Whew. I got mad props for respect.
No joke aside, man, it hurt like to bend my index finger that like this, like I'm doing it. Like I know you can see that clear as day. It hurts like hell, and I think part of it's just because the one that's right there on the back of the knuckle, I think she got down a couple layers. So it definitely ooh, Gentleman Chris Adams versus Shawn, son of a bitch.
That's a good one, but we have to save that one for another one because that was really good.
Write these Prodigal Heel. Write these down so that next week, if you're able to come on, man, we can talk about this shit. Because I am not gonna remember. My memory is about as good as fucking Swiss cheese.
DX versus the Fabulous Freebirds.
That'd be an interesting one.
You know what's interesting? I think that I actually think that when I see Superstar McMichaels, I always think that he's like a product of the Fabulous Freebirds.
He does give me that. He does give me kind of a Michael Hayes vibe. I'm not gonna lie, and nothing against that. It works.
So I want to thank PK Valor. We're gonna get in here again sometime next week. I'll get the. I know I got the banner. We're supposed to have Jay Superstar on here, but apparently.
Yep, and I'm around. I mean, that's the nice thing about my new work schedule is I'm home during the week all week now instead of at work all week. So I'm available Monday through Thursday.
So now what we'll do is we'll get one day next week where it's 7:00. We'll be able to. I'll ask Poston. I got his number, so I'll ask him.
That works.
We'll get Nate back in here, so see if Nate will come in here, and we'll get a few of them in here. We'll start bullshitting. And we'll talk about these little dream matches and stuff because I got a list myself.
Maybe we'll get Mel to show us that grapefruit trick.
Maybe she might do it to my head. I don't know.
How much? To get her to do it to mine, how much? I mean, I've got free money now still coming, so I got my tax return soon.
I have to ask her when she's in there in the living room now playing the game, and she's like, "Come on." So yeah, we're gonna basically talk about all this stuff. For any of you who think we missed WrestleMania 20 and all that, we didn't. We'll talk about that next week. We're just gonna call this WrestleMania Panel 2, WrestleMania Part 1, and then we'll do Part 2.
Part 2 next week before we get to actual WrestleMania.
Oh, Mel just texted me from the room. If Mike wants me to grapefruit his face with my legs, I will.
Sweet. Hell yeah. Looks like I have to make a drive.
And with her getting back in the gym, it's going to be even worse.
That's why I need to make that drive soon. That way before it gets too bad for me.
Well, it's good bullshitting with you, and it was good seeing the comment section here. We're going to get the guys. We're going to get the guys in here. We're going to make this a big WrestleMania panel, and it's right before WrestleMania next weekend. So we're good with this. We'll be good with this one. We're going to do the panel 2 next week. I'll get with you, and I'll get with everybody else to see what date works.
You got it, boss.
We'll get this going, and by the way, I know you're a big football fan. Poston's a big football fan. I'm working on getting a football thing together.
Awesome. I'd love to sit down and talk football with a group of people too.
So we're going to talk about that one too. As a matter of fact, I haven't announced this yet, but a buddy of mine, Steven Rose, usually does his NFL picks where you have to pick the games and stuff like that. Well, I'm thinking about doing one this year myself.
Okay.
So we're talking about getting some picks, and then whoever wins the championship gets a prize of some sort.
That sounds like it'd be some fun.
Yeah, so we'll get to do all that stuff too. So appreciate the time, man. I know you were healing.
I appreciate you having me on.
I know you're going to be healing, and now I know that Mel's probably going to message you and probably talk some shit to you probably soon.
I'm okay with that.
She probably will talk some shit to you. Anyway, though, we'll see you guys later on. Like, share, sub, guys, because I was at 70, now I'm at 68 now. I mean, I know I've been gone for 12 days, but come on, people. Don't sit there and just disappear just because I talked about AEW wrestling.
Yeah, there's worse things that he could be doing.
Oh, and by the way, too, and if they are watching, I'm just going to throw this out there. This is just only directly towards one person because I know she dissed the Undertaker. This has nothing to do with PK. Nothing against him. I'm being professional when I'm about to say this. I want you to watch Undertaker's Hall of Fame speech on next Friday, and you're going to tell me what that man has not done for this business. And if it wasn't for a guy like Undertaker and a guy like Ric Flair and guys like Hogan and all that, you guys would not be able to have a wrestling ring, and you guys would not have a business right now. Mad props.
I wouldn't be where I'm at in the business if that was the case, or I wouldn't have been able to. Taker did a lot. I think for me too, as it helped me learn a lot as an individual. So,
And you can't call yourself a wrestler unless you've been inside a gym setting where the air conditioner is turned off and it's 100 degrees outside, it's 110 degrees in there inside the ring. You can't call yourself a wrestler until you do that.
I just finished eating like a couple hours ago. Please don't make me throw up thinking about
Sorry.
that.
I mean,
those days were definitely the 4 or 5 hour training sessions were fucking killers.
the wrestlers are more pussyfied now. Let's just say that much. I will say that much. They're more pussyfied now. I have to make that comment.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this, though. WrestleMania, we're talked about it. We're going to talk about it more. We'll get together. We'll get this going. Thanks to PK Valor for coming in. Thanks to Poston and the
You're welcome.
Superstar for blessing. I'm glad he didn't send his ass in the photos on here. But who knows? He might do it on video. You never know with Superstar.
Yeah. I hope he can show up. It'd be really nice. I mean, I've got some more words for him. I know he's going to have some words for me. But
yeah. Hopefully,
I know for the sake of the show and for the sake of the viewers, I can be on my best behavior if his ass will be.
You heard it there, folks. Big Kev's World, PK Valor. We are out. WrestleMania Panel 1, Part 2 next week.
Part 2 next week. Just let me know when, and I'll be there.